Welcome, everyone, to the Men's Yoga Podcast. Today, our guest is Lucas Hale. Lucas speaks to us today about how he has transitioned from powerlifting and weight training into the many variations of vinyasa, hatha, and now yin yoga. Lucas gives us insight on how he's developing his growth of the yoga knowledge and how he's giving back to the yoga community.
So I am a 33-year-old guy from the United States. I actually currently live in North Carolina, and I am a transplant from the Midwest of the United States. And I have always had a fitness background. I've coached football. I was a personal trainer. I actually was a director of a couple of different gyms. And while I obviously was associated with yoga via instructors and stuff like that, just working with them, it wasn't something that I really did too much throughout, my younger years. And then fast forward to about 3 years ago, my wife and I moved here, and I guess, quote unquote, retired, if you will. I actually stopped working. She graduated from her doctorate program as a pharmacist, and I, had a lot more mental instabilities, over the course of not working.
Right.
It really brought up, like, I was filling my day with so much, task and to-dos that I didn't have a lot of time to really figure out who I was. And now that I had that time, I was discovering that maybe I didn't like that person, or that it was kind of, I didn't want to get into the deep darkness of it. And that actually kind of led me to yoga, because I had always been told that, it's more of a mental state than it is a physical and things like that. So I kind of started doing my own little research with it and fell in love with the lifestyle of yoga. And I've just been kind of working on myself ever since. And I still work out, outside of yoga, but it is the main part of my my routine now, some type of yoga.
So was it like an aha moment for you that made you switch to yoga, or was it was it more of a development kind of like
Um,
yeah.
it was definitely it was an aha moment, I think, for my mental state. Um, Again, kind of just realizing that there was something going on in there and I needed to figure it out. But as far as getting into like the physical practice of yoga, it was kind of a progression, because I come from a background of strength sports. So
Mhm.
it was, I'm used to intensity. So I kind of had to like start with the most intense thing I could find. So I, actually followed Travis Elliott. I don't know if you know who that is, with Interdimension TV, and his power yoga classes even kicked my butt when I was, the most conditioned I've probably ever been. And so I started with like power yoga, then I kind of went into like the vinyasas and the hatha, and then it transitioned to me trying a yin yoga. And that's kind of a combination, as you know, of really the mental game and the physical game. And so I fell in love with that practice as well. So physically, it was definitely a, step-by-step process, but it was one of those, I was home for probably, I don't know, a couple of weeks. And then I just was like, wow, I really need to do something, but I'm not a doctor guy if I can help it. So I went a little bit more holistic and started doing research on yoga.
Your story seems probably like very relatable. It was relatable for me too, where I started off more with like physical exercise. I was big time into sports and whatnot. I was actually, the first time I did yoga, it was I was doing P90X3 or something like that, one of those P90X stuff. And every Wednesday was the yoga day, right? And I
Yeah.
would always skip it. And I remember the first time I think I pressed play by accident. And the first thing Tony Horton says is, whatever you do, don't skip this. And I was like, okay, I guess I'll listen to you, Tony. And yeah, when I did, I was like, holy cow, this thing was crazy. Like it actually felt really good. Like it
Yeah,
was
it's
like,
actually funny. I had that exact same experience, not with yoga at all, but like, so when I kind of first started, one of the things that I would skip is shavasana at the end. I would
right,
never allow myself that opportunity. And when I was doing a yoga video, I was getting up. I was in process of getting up to turn off the video, and the instructor said, "Now I would recommend that you don't skip this." And I was like, "Oh, wow!" Like you literally said that as I was getting up, about to press the stop button. I was like, "I think you're talking directly to me." So I went ahead and laid back down, and ever since then, I don't skip shavasana. So yeah, it's nice.
yeah, it's I shared this on another podcast, but I'll just share it again because I thought it was, to me, it was very powerful. I heard it on another podcast, and this gentleman who's a musician, he was sharing some stories about yoga and he mentions when you go up to a piano, you don't go up and hit all the keys at the same time. He's like, you have to create the pause, you have to put the pauses in between to create this beautiful melody. So if we're not pausing in our life, how are we going to create a beautiful melody?
Huh.
And
I
yeah, I
like
thought it was
that.
very, very neat and very powerful.
Yeah, I like that.
So what does your self-care practices look like then now?
Well, much different than it used to. When I came from a strength background, and it was always go, go, go for me. And recovery really took a back seat. I competed in weightlifting. I've pretty much any type of extreme that you can think of, I've done. I've done long distance, like marathon style runs. I've done powerlifting, weightlifting, all that kind of stuff. And so I was always trying to be able to get back into the gym more. And now recovery, or what I would have considered recovery as a strength athlete, is almost about 75% of my practice, as far as self-care. And what I've noticed is through my self-care, all of these old injuries that I've developed and just kind of didn't didn't focus on because I just wanted to get stronger, they're starting to come out a little bit more. And so I'm able to actually heal stuff that has been there for about 10 years. And it's actually pretty interesting. So I mean, I still do circuit training. Um, that's my strength. So I work mostly calisthenics, but then I also do kettlebell work and stuff like that. Uh, Diet wise, I have cleaned up a lot. I was a strength athlete, so it was all protein all the time. Didn't really care if I was getting a little chunky, um,
Right.
things like that. And now, so I balanced out my diet, so that's helped with my self care. Um, and I spearhead that with intermittent fasting. I think that has done a lot for not only my health, but also my mental clarity as well. And then I do try to meditate daily, and I do that a lot by compounding it with whatever activity I'm doing. So I actually get up every day at 5:30, um, and I do a 45-minute either bike ride, depending on the weather, or a walk with a weighted vest. And then I do my activity, whether it be the circuit training, and or I actually participate in Muay Thai as well. So I do that, and then I always take at least 10 minutes to sit down and meditate after that. And that's probably the best self care practice that I do. And it's been routine now for a while, but I lose that a little bit quicker than I do all the other stuff. But I am trying to make sure that stays in. And then the other self care that I consider self care is I love to learn. So I'm always reading or, something new or listening to a podcast to try to like, you know, continue to develop who I am because I think I'm a big believer in, if you're not growing, you're just kind of being stagnant, and that's not something that I want to be doing as I age. So
For yoga, what so you went from weightlifting and then you kind of developed into yoga. Like, do you remember your first time stepping on the mat and going, like, what was your relationship with that, if you have?
um, the first time ever stepping on the mat, yeah, I actually remember two distinct times. So the very first time, it was actually quite a few years ago. I was the director of a gym, and we brought in a yoga teacher to, you know, we're just adding classes to our routines and stuff like that. So we brought in the yoga teacher and actually did class simply to figure out what it is that she was doing. So that way you know, I figured out what the members wanted or whatever. And that was quite the experience because I was not ready for what she was doing. She it was very mentally challenging for me because
Mm.
they were going so slow, and she was talking about, calming the mind and focusing on the breath. And it was 60 minutes of it was agony for me, to be honest. And I just went back to my strength training and, never really thought about it again. But then now I'm back on, whenever I got on the mat this time around, it was actually a post workout yoga for me. And I I specifically remember I was doing a yoga with Cassandra YouTube video and it was 20 minutes, and I was like, "Oh, okay, I got this." It was a 20-minute. It was even called post. Like, oh, this is exactly what I need anyway, right? And there was just like what you called an aha moment. It was just one of those, wow, this is what I need, and it's what I need more of. And at that point, I started actually taking strength training out and replacing it with yoga. So that was really my catapult to actual yoga as a routine.
Has What does yoga help you with? Like, you've uh you've transitioned more from the strength training to doing more yoga. So what has that really opened up for you?
Um, Physically, it's opened up my my mobility, my ability to move, and that's been awesome for me because now that I have a toddler running around, I'm able to kind of keep up with him, and he likes to. He's really big into tumbling. We got him into tumbling, so he does a lot of flips and a lot of
Ah,
weird
nice.
random toddler things that he does, and I'm able to actually get down and do it with him. And so it's actually opened me up to really thinking of physical training in a different way because I've been doing a lot outside of yoga. Like I said, I have participated in Muay Thai, and I'm going to be getting into Brazilian Jiu Jitsu this year, and I do a little bit of primal movement. And before, I wouldn't have ever thought of that because to me, when how I always perceived fitness was put weight on the bar and do what you can. And I don't even use, like I said, I don't even use weights anymore other than maybe a random kettlebell. um, Mentally, it's actually the biggest thing for me that I have noticed is my awareness and being able to be more in the moment. I'm a monkey mind at heart. I'm always thinking about what's next. I'm always thinking about what's going on before. It's always been very, very difficult for me to stay in the moment. And yoga mentally has allowed me to focus on my breathing and focus on what's going on right now and being more aware of what's been going on in my life. And about things I want to change, because everybody has those things that when you're doing something and you look at retrospect and you're like, maybe I shouldn't have done that. Well, I don't look back on that anymore. I'm actually more aware of what I'm doing. So if I'm doing something that maybe I want to change, I'm able to catch myself in the moment and be more aware of what I want to change and change it right then and there. And that's been really cool for me.
You're more acting than reacting, right? And
Right.
you're able to catch yourself in that present moment. And it's still tough, it's still difficult, right? It's still very challenging, and it's a probably a life experience in itself,
Actually, I
kind of
think it's
going
more
through.
challenging now.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like, when it was retrospective, it was like, well, there's nothing I can do about it now. And it just keeps going on. But now it's like, now I'm more aware of it. And I'm like, oh, now I haven't changed that behavior. So sometimes it's actually more challenging. So,
Yeah, right. Yeah, totally. What is your favorite yoga practice?
um, I would say, funny enough, yin yoga is actually my favorite type of yoga now.
Wow.
Um, like I said, I couldn't do it before, and now that I'm able to actually sit down and be with myself, it's meditative for me. Like, I mean, yin yoga is known to be a little bit more meditative and restorative and stuff like that. But for me, I catch myself in yin yoga physically being able to come in and out of consciousness almost in between transitions. So between, one pose to the next, I'm almost in this trance where I'm able to actually be with myself and be in this moment, and it doesn't stop until the transition, and it's awesome. So,
Wow. What is your favorite posture?
um, my favorite my favorite ground posture is fish pose, and my favorite standing posture is warrior two.
Cool. Why Warrior Two?
It just makes me feel powerful. It still gives me that. Again, I came from the background I came from, and the person I am. I mean, I haven't, my personality as a whole hasn't really changed that much. I'm still very much, I'm a fiery person. I do things with passion. And when I'm in Warrior 2, I feel that, I really feel the fire and it puts me in that yoga zone, if you will. And I don't know, I just feel really well, like really good. And fish pose, it feels awesome. So that's why.
Nice, nice. Is there any posture you're kind of working on?
Yeah, right now the big one for me is fire log pose. Like my hips have been destroyed in my 20s with all the squatting and the heavy lifting. So I really have been focusing on a lot of major hip openers and stuff like that. So pigeon obviously is a big one for me. I do that every day. But like fire log pose really gets to the hips, and that's probably the one that I've been working on the most. And I actually realized just the other day, that I was able to get into the pose using a prop, and that was the first time I've ever been able to do that. So I was actually pretty impressed with myself.
Nice. Congrats. Congrats. It's nice when you accomplish those little pieces, right? Each time.
Yeah.
Right now I've been trying to nail my handstand. I get it in between, but a couple times I'll catch myself, and then a
Nice.
couple times, hey, I got to tip over, body's just not working with me
Yeah.
today. It happens.
Yeah. And that's a big thing with yoga that I've come to realize too, is I like in strength sports, it was, this is the weight that you need to lift. This is how many times you need to lift it. And if you can't do it, you need to figure out why and go about it, find a different avenue. With yoga, it's, you know what, if your body's not working with you today, that's okay. Just keep flowing, and you got tomorrow. And that's great. Whenever I was a strength athlete, there wasn't a tomorrow, because tomorrow I had to do a completely different extra, a whole different routine. And if I missed a Monday, I mean, my whole week was thrown off. And with yoga, it's not like that, and it's actually really nice on the mind.
What has been your biggest learning experience?
That's a good question. My biggest life learning experience would probably be, I mean, I can tell you what I've learned is that I've learned a lot from my experiences. I honestly, like, it's not a learning experience, but I think how I perceive what you're saying is the ability to learn from experience, I think, is probably my biggest learning experience. Being
Wow.
able to, like, I actually was reading a quote the other day, that, you know, life in life, we get the test first and then we learn the lesson. And so the trick is not to, like, you're going to continue to get those lessons until you learn. You're going to continue to get tested until you learn the lesson. And I've learned that taking something from every experience is worth it. So, for example, we'll get out of yoga just for this example. When I worked for one of the gyms I worked for, I had a director that was above me that, I mean, he was not a good person, to be completely honest. And instead of just complaining about him, I was able to still learn things from him because he wasn't an ignorant man. He just wasn't a nice person. And so a lot of people can't do that. They can't, like, when they, you know, decide that something's bad or that, they're not going to go that route or something like that, they completely shut down. And
Mhm.
I've learned that being able to learn from your experiences, good or bad, is very important in life.
Adding that purpose to what you're consuming at that moment, right?
Right.
Instead of, yeah, like instead of turning a blind eye and not paying attention and
In a
or
roundabout way. That was a really long answer. I apologize.
yeah, no, oh, that's it. It's good. And I think people need to be aware of that. I certainly do. Because you are given these challenges and you're giving these moments to develop yourself, and it's it's not a god why me, right? It's more for your development, and we miss those points.
Right. And as far as yoga is concerned, and like the lifestyle that I've really started to, you know, put together for myself ever since really going deep into yoga is this one here, is that life is actually great, really, no matter what's going on. And it's not always greener on the other side. So take time to appreciate what you have, because there's always going to be someone out there that has less. And that's really what I've learned from my yoga journey thus far.
Enjoying the process, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So are you teaching yoga? Are you a yoga teacher?
I am a yoga instructor, but I don't teach. I actually, whenever I went into my yoga teacher training, it was actually solely for me. I just wanted to know more. And I figured the best way to get an in-depth look is to figure out how it is that they're trained and stuff like that. And it's not anything new for me to do. I mean, I hold fitness certifications and quite a few things. So I was like, might as well get this done, especially now that I have the time. And yeah, so I have been asked to teach a few classes at my local gym here that I might do. But whenever I first, started that, it had nothing to do with teaching. It was all about me. So, and figuring out for myself what yoga was.
What are you currently offering people right now? Because I know you have a podcast kick in. Actually, before we get into that, I want to know, who is full Lucas?
Who's full Lucas?
Yeah, who's full Lucas? What is that?
Well, that's a loaded question. I don't
How about
even know where to
yeah,
go
sum it
with
up for
that.
us.
Um, to be completely honest, the way that I look at myself now is I'm just one big giant contradiction if you really want to think about it in terms of like trying to put yourself in a bucket is almost impossible because we we are the calm and we are the storm. We are everything that's in our life, and how it's all about perception in that way. So full Lucas is passionate, but he's also calm. He has a little bit of a temper, but he's actually a really nice guy and he actually cares about the world. And he, at this point, is a loving father who's honored to be able to stay home with his son, a husband to a wife of 12 plus years, um, and someone who will continue to grow and learn every single day until he no longer can and he's no longer here. So I'm a little bit of everything. I'm a mixed bag, honestly.
Nice. Full Lucas sounds like someone we're all kind of striving for in a way to embrace our true nature, right? And
Yeah.
enjoy it.
Well, because that's the thing. I mean, the one constant in life, everyone just always hears it, is change. So to be able to not put yourself in that box, because I've put myself in boxes my whole entire life. I'm the strength guy. I'm this guy. I'm that guy. And the thing is that is the guy I was when I was 20. That is the guy I was when I was 15. This and that. And I'm gonna take bits and pieces of that guy or those guys with me through my entire life, but you're never going to be the same person every single day. Your life experiences, they're going to change who you are, and you have life experiences every day, or at least, I mean, most people have life experiences every day. Sometimes I stay home with Titan, and that's my son's name, and I don't actually have any experiences other than dealing with him, but for the most part,
But that's an
every
experience.
right. So like you're having these experiences through life, and if you're able to be in the moment with them, there's no way for you to be the same person you were yesterday or last week or 5 years from now. And that's important. So full Lucas is going to be completely different if you ask me in another month.
I like that. I like that. So where can everyone find you?
um like you mentioned, I actually do a little podcast. I've never done one before, so I'm actually, working out some kinks. And what I discovered is a lot of people that make it, I guess, make excuses about, not, you know, working on themselves is that they don't have a lot of time. So my Warrior Monk podcast is called Wisdom at Sunrise, and I post it every day at 6 a.m. and it's 5 minutes or less. And it's really just a self-development, self-discovery podcast. We talk about different movement patterns or mindfulness practices, and it's really just something that gets people thinking. It's not a cure for anything, or it's not a how-to on this or that. It's literally just tidbits of information, because what I've discovered over the course of the last 13 plus years in the health industry is that 9 times out of 10 people know what to do or what not to do. And that's becoming pretty clear in terms of, self-development as well, as most people at least know what not to do. So if you remind them what they should be doing more often, which is why I post them every day, Monday through Friday, they'll generally figure out what works for them. And that's what that is all about. And so you can actually follow me on Facebook and Instagram at Warrior Monk Method, and I'm also on YouTube, The Warrior Monk.
Wonderful. Well, I'll make sure those are in the show notes so everyone can follow you and catch you there. And I want to thank you, Lucas, for coming on the show and sharing your journey. We need more of this happening and more of stuff what you're doing and sharing your story and sharing your podcast to get men involved with yoga and realizing the benefits of how it can help us and each other at the same time.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.